Show some love for Kwong.
Growing up in Australia as a little Chinese boy in Canberra, my parents always told me that there were three things that I could be: a lawyer, a doctor, or a failure. But at 9 years old, a career path wasn't really what was top of my list. The top of my list of my things to do was the same thing that most other kids wanted. It didn't matter how old you were or what color your hair was or what culture you were from. The one thing that most kids wanted was to just be accepted by the other kids. Now, at 9 years old, I had pretty simple logic, and acceptance equaled coolness. The cooler I was, the more accepted I'd be. And I thought that was pretty simple, but the problem was I wasn't that cool. Bowl-shaped haircut? Yeah, not cool. Maths nerd? Not cool. And speaking pretty bad English wasn't cool. Now, in my search for coolness, I realized that there was some hope, because I realized that, a bit like karate, Kung Fu was cool. And at the time, my idol was Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan's this famous Hong Kong martial artist. He climbed trees, he jumped off buildings, he pretty much kicked everybody's ass. And I figured, he's got black hair, I've got black hair. He spoke bad English, I spoke bad English. Hey, I'm a Kung Fu master. And so, when I found out that Jackie Chan was actually going to be eating in a little Chinese restaurant in Canberra, I was like, over the moon. I was like, I've got a plan to be cool. All I have to do is go to the restaurant, get his autograph, get a photo, take the evidence to school, and it'll be instant coolness. And so my parents took me to this Chinese restaurant, which happened to be called Great Wall. And if there are any Canberrans in here, you know it's the truth. And they took me to this restaurant, and I sat down on the table in front of me, and the waiter told me that Jackie Chan was in the private room. They were up some stairs, sort of about the same height as this stage, up on a mezzanine, a little bit on the side. And I went up to the private room, big white blank doors, you couldn't see through them, and I stood there, and I was ready to knock on the door. And then my 9-year-old logic said, wait a moment, I can sit down on the table, wait till he walks out of the room, and that won't be as conflicting. And so I walked all the way back down the stairs, sat on the table, and I just stared at the door. And for the next hour, I was staring, hoping that Jackie would come out, and he didn't come out. And I was thinking, dude, don't you need to go to the toilet? What's happening? And then I looked in front of me on the table, and all the food had finished, and I was running out of time. And so I said to my parents that I was still hungry, and they ordered another plate of sweet and sour pork. And for the next half hour, I ate as slowly as I could, looking at the door. But another half hour passed, and my parents said, look, you've got to go knock on that door or we're going home. And so I walk up the stairs, I stand in front of the door, and again, I can't do it. And I'm shaking. My knees are shaking, my heart's thumping, and my inner voice starts speaking to me, and it says, come on, just knock on the door, it's not that hard. Come on, just grow some balls, just do it. And my other voice is saying to me, you're 9 years old, you haven't hit puberty yet. And so I'm standing there, and I realize I just can't do it. And then the door opens, and I think it's Jackie, but it's a lady in a blue dress. And so I just pretend that I happen to be walking past on this little mezzanine. And I sort of turn around, I walk back down, and I sit on the table. And my parents said, look, you just have to go do it. And so I go back up there, I'm standing there again, and I realize I can't do it, and I realize I'm never going to be cool. And I start to cry. And I have no idea, but I don't know how long I'm standing there, but it must have been for at least 3 to 5 minutes, because the lady in the blue walks back up and walks around me into the room, and my tears are flowing. I go back down, I sit down with my parents, and I'm hoping, just hoping, that maybe my tears will convince them to actually do the dirty work for me. And I'm praying and I'm hoping, and my parents stand up and they start putting on their jackets. And I realize my parents aren't going to be doing anything awesome because they're Asian. And so they want to teach me a life lesson that I need to do things by myself. And so as I'm sitting there crying, I realize I just can't do it. I'm just going to go home empty-handed. I put on my jacket, and the next thing I know, the door opens. Out comes Jackie Chan with this huge smile, and behind him is the lady in the blue dress. Jackie comes down and he says, I heard there's somebody here that I need to meet. I get his signature, I get a photo with him, and I am over the moon. So that night I learned there are three people who help us in our lives. They're our idols who inspire us. There are the people who love us, who try to teach us. And there are just those really, really nice people who just want to help.